Well, it's 10. So let's get started. And I am thrilled to be here. Uh, it's never a done deal, is it? Whether we manage to get to something or not. But we've got the merit to be here, so that's fantastic. And an enormous thank you to Norba Ling for hosting me with this course. So the course is called Triple Decker, which I thought was a wonderful name for it. That was Mary's idea for the name. And it's a course on essential skills for life. And from Buddhist point of view, essential skills not just for life, but that can lead us all the way up to liberation and enlightenment. So really essential skills. And so the three main skills are ethics, concentration, and wisdom. So we're going to spend 1 week on each of these just as a dip in, an introduction, and to get us started in a really practical way of applying them. Because my whole approach, of course, is this. What I try and do is be a bridge between when you first come across the Dharma and the Buddha's teachings, can be really difficult to know where on earth do I get started. So I'm just hoping to be this little bridge between daily life and the Buddha's teachings, and then off you go. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Miffi Maxmillion, and I'm the spiritual program coordinator at a centre in Brisbane, Langri Tangpa Centre, a Buddhist centre that's part of the FPMT, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's wonderful organisation. So with our triple decker, these essential skills for life and all the way up to enlightenment, how come that we need to actually have these skills? It's kind of just like with parenting. Parenting isn't necessarily something that comes easily. It's not something that people naturally know how to do. Some people are blessed to naturally know how to do it, and others just find themselves all at sea and ridden with guilt and, feeling really demoralized and totally confused. But we can always learn. So we too can learn how to take the essence of this life, how to actually develop these, the innate potential that we have. With just a bit of guidance and then knowing where to put our energy, then the results can be really extraordinary. If we're going to make it in this life, if we're going to be able to be successful in a worldly way, successful in our relationships, successful in our spiritual progress, we really need to have these skills. Otherwise, all the intentions in the world, it won't get us there. If we do train in these skills, then not only will we be able to make this life more successful, it's actually the causes for happiness, for lasting happiness, lasting contentment, peace of mind, genuine happiness, which of course is what we're all striving for. So they're useful not just for now or in the kind of medium term future, but they will have a continuing benefit all the way up to whatever we've set our goal, liberation, enlightenment, the works. Hello, Nicole. I just saw that you joined us. That's wonderful. So I'm going to get the screen share up now. And so the triple decker, what we're talking about is 3 higher trainings. And why they're called higher is because they're not just for the immediate term. They're not just for career or relationships, but higher in the fact that the aim can actually completely liberate us from the ups and downs of cyclic existence. And to introduce these 3 higher trainings, we're going to look at ethics today, but just to give you the overall picture. This image here of a person cutting down a kind of weird looking tree, it's probably a banana tree, I'd say, but this is the analogy that the whole thing hangs on. So when we have all of our problems and they, you know, each day we have more problems and then we try and tackle them, and then the next day there's a new set of problems, and it seems never ending and it's exhausting. So what if we could cut all the problems at the root? Instead of like having to deal with each one sequentially, oh my gosh, you know, what if we could just get rid of them in batches even, let alone all at the root? So the Buddha actually identified 84,000 delusions. So, you know, I kind of think, oh, you know, if I've conquered one, that's 83,900 and whatever, 67 to go. Oh my God. So it would be great if we could do it in job lots, or even just cut the very cause of all of our delusions so that none of them arise anymore. They're gone. So cutting them at the root, the only way that we can cut those delusions at the root, instead of just trying to pick the leaves off the tree one by one, is with wisdom. So the wisdom is represented as the axe. So like the flaming sword that cuts through the darkness of ignorance, the axe that cuts the root of all of our problems, not just each one by one, like a little tiny pair of scissors cutting off the leaves of the tree one by one. One fell swoop, gone, and then we're free. So the wisdom is the only thing that does it. And it's a particular form of wisdom, the wisdom understanding the nature of reality. In Buddhist terms, the wisdom realizing emptiness. Understanding the ultimate mode of reality. And because we misunderstand this, because we're confused, that's why we have problems. So we need to develop this wisdom. But as you can see, an axe is a dangerous tool. And if you've ever seen Funniest Home videos, you know there can be some disasters with an axe. So the two strong arms that hold the axe are our concentration. You need to have concentration to be able to wield your wisdom. And if you don't, then you can do yourself a damage. If our concentration can't hold us on a correct analysis, and we go off into an extreme, for instance, of nihilism or cynicism, getting really despondent, or getting very concrete and inflexible in our thinking, all of that comes because we haven't got strong enough concentration. So the two arms are like the ability to wield our wisdom, to see it through. And then, well, what supports these two arms? The body. So the body is the ethics. And this is a great one, because what we can do is we embody our ethics. We need to have a strong body, a strong core, inner strength to be able to support our practice. So that's what we're looking at today, how to embody our ethics. Because many of us can subscribe to ethics, can say, oh, I value this and I value that, and I'm a pacifist, and you know, I'm trying to develop my compassion and la la la, but it's many times it's just words. It's really difficult when push comes to shove to act like that, to embody our ethics. And I found with myself, I don't know about you, but for me, there's a discrepancy between what I believe in and what I'd like to be like, and then how I actually act, how I actually am. You know, sometimes that there's a big chasm there, and it's confronting to recognize it. But there's something that we can do. We can build up our core strength. And spiritually, that means building up our ethics, really cultivating them and making them strong. So there's a wonderful quote from Nagarjuna. If a container is broken, how can it hold anything? If our ethics are broken, how can we develop positive qualities? So that really illustrates that ethics is our core strength, and it is the foundation for all of our practice. How do we get our ethics? So basically, ethics means that we refrain from harm. We restrain ourselves from harm, from harming ourselves or harming others. And so ethics is a state of mind also that wishes to abstain from harm. In Australian parlance, it's keeping yourself nice. I don't know if you have that in America. So we try and abandon harmful physical and verbal actions, how we express ourselves. So abandoning harmful physical actions is fairly easy. Abandoning harmful verbal speech patterns and way that we communicate, slightly trickier. And then, well, what about our mind? So this is the thing that we can't force people to be good, and we cannot legislate for morals. We can only legislate for behavior. So ethics is about behavior, physical and verbal behavior. The wisdom and the concentration, that's about the mind. So that's in the next couple of weeks. And so what happens is that we have a problem here when it comes to behavior, because much of our laws in our country, in our state, we want them to match our moral values, but often it's counterproductive. So for instance, if you think about back in the era, prohibition, alcohol prohibition, I mean, there's countless movies about it, isn't it? And what are those movies filled with? Gangsters with machine guns. So what happened with prohibition? Did it actually stop anyone drinking alcohol? Actually, no. In fact, alcohol sales boomed. Speakeasies boomed. So here comes the conundrum that if we actually want people, for instance, to drink less, to not abuse alcohol, to change that behavior, we actually have to make it legal, legislate for it in a way that makes it controllable. And for a Buddhist, this can seem quite counterintuitive as well. For instance, with abortion, if we want to protect the lives of others, prohibition actually means that the lives of others come under great danger. So from a Buddhist point of view, to protect lives, actually, we have to legalize abortion. But of course, this looks bad, doesn't it? So this discrepancy is very difficult to get our heads around. And why we can't is because we think our laws are our morals, but they're not. All they can do is legislate behavior. Another one is, say, for instance, safe injecting rooms for heroin. No one's ever going to vote for that, even though it's been proven again and again and again that it minimizes crime in the neighborhood, it minimizes disease and death, because it looks like you're voting for heroin. So this is the tricky thing with ethics, isn't it? Ethics is about behavior and being very smart about how we go about it. From an inner point of view, a spiritual path point of view, our main motivation for ethics has to be a lot more than just social justice, or not just, but a lot more than social justice, and a lot more than fear, a lot more than trying to appear to be good. It's got to be motivated by a determination to become completely free from cyclic existence. So the big motivation. So many times when we think about our ethics, we're doing a bit of bargaining. Oh, if I act well, if I be good, good things will happen to me. And then if we try and be really, really good and people steal from us or cheat us, we go, what's wrong? But that's actually not having a completely pure motivation. It can't come through bargaining with karma. We can't develop our ethics to be stable if they come from fear of being caught out. they're not stable if they come from us thinking, oh, we should. This little voice behind us can't come from just reputation of looking well. It's got to come from this really deep inner understanding about the fundamental human condition and the determination to become free of the ups and downs of cyclic existence. And then if we're able to keep our ethics pure, to keep that container unbroken, keeping ethics becomes happiness itself. So I'll just stop the share here for a moment because I have this great quote from Nyung-ne Rinpoche. So this book, it's really good, Practicing the Path. In terms of a lamrim book, it's really, it's a nice book for beginners, because Nyung-ne Rinpoche from a Tangpa college and in America, I think in Portland, so he taught to Westerners. So it's got this really nice flavor to it for us. So he puts ethics into a big context here. Many people in the Western world these days are afflicted with the mental sickness called depression. Depression happens when the mind is overcome by a very strong sense of craving for a certain object, a certain person, a certain experience. As this craving grows and its wishes are not actualized, aggression arises in the mind. And the combination of these two emotions gives rise to a sense of hopelessness. In some cases, the person may become suicidal, and in some cases, a person may become deeply depressed. The root of this mental state is the combination of extreme attachment and anger. When we are already caught up in these emotions, applying the ultimate antidote of wisdom that realizes selflessness is far beyond our ability. The best method to handle such an experience, therefore, is to prevent it before it occurs. And the most extraordinary, supreme way we can choose to prevent it is to live in the joy of pure ethics. In fact, living in the joy of pure ethics is the best antidote for all of the gross delusions that arise in our minds. So, people, this is the easy way. This is the easy way out of our problems and our depression, is by living in ethics and recognizing it as a joy, not as something pushing down on us. So how we can get started. Whatever vows that we hold them proudly. They might be marriage vows, citizenship vows. You might be lucky enough to become a newly minted citizen of the country you're in. Whatever religious vows that you have, maybe refuge vows or bodhisattva vows, even tantric vows. So that's one way of signposts, and that's why I put this signpost in to illustrate it, that they're reminders to show us what direction to go in. They're not hard and fast rules. They're reminders, just like street signs are there to keep us safe on the road of life. The professional code of conduct that we have, whatever, sometimes you actually have a written code of conduct for a particular job. Uphold that proudly. And abiding by the laws of the land. So that too, especially as a Buddhist, we can't be seen to break the laws of the land, or we'll bring the entire Buddhist religion into disrepute. So if we don't agree with the laws of the land, then we have to work to change them. So I have a little story to tell you now. Where do our ethics actually come from? Because most of us, our ethics come from pressure from outside. We act well because other people are watching us. The watcher. So, when you walk into a shop, and often they have mannequins there at the front door. So there's a reason for that. It's not actually to sell you the clothes. The reason is that as you walk into the shop, you feel you're being watched. And when we feel we're being watched, we behave better. So it actually cuts down on shoplifting. That's why they also have the cardboard cutouts out at the front. Many of you might have seen The Great Gatsby, you know, with this this billboard, the great oculist, the eyes. So this is a really interesting literary technique. By setting up these eyes of the great oculist backwards and forwards as they drive along, you get this sense in the entire novel and in the movie of being watched. It's subliminal. So it situates the Great Gatsby in an ethical realm of how is it possible to be ethical, you know, with all of those riches. And it makes you question the behavior of everybody completely subliminally just by having two eyes watching you. It's amazing. You know, if they weren't there, the whole movie wouldn't have the same power that it does. It puts us under ethical scrutiny. Now, they did this wonderful experiment with the honour system of having snacks at work around the water cooler. And so they put the snacks there, and at the end of the week, there was a bit of money in the jar and a whole lot of IOUs. You know, so then they put a picture of a smiling person photograph above the snacks saying thank you. And at the end of the week, there was only one IOU and everybody else had put their money in. So then they thought, oh, this is interesting. You know, it's the watcher. If you feel you're being watched, then you act well. So then they thought, well, how far can we take it? So then they just put a smiley face, a cartoon of the watcher, and exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's a human being with eyes or even if it's a little smiley face. Everybody feels watched, and so most people put their money in, hardly any IOUs. So we rely on this experience of being watched. But what happens is if we feel we're not being watched, it's like Lord of the Flies, all bets are off. You know, we just act haywire. So what we really have to do is have the inner watcher, have our Buddha nature watch us, have the peaceful, loving gaze of the Buddha upon us. That becomes our inner Buddha eyes, our own sense of conscience and fairness that's there innately within us. And of course, the wonderful thing about the Buddha's eyes is that they are full of love. They see you exactly how you are and accept you exactly how you are. So this leads us to the next part, which is, well, who says I can't do that? I don't like being told what to do. And if anyone has a rule, I want to know, excuse me, why? I need to be convinced. So there are two different types of misdeeds of negative behavior, unethical behavior: natural misdeeds and proscribed misdeeds. So natural misdeeds are universally recognized actions that cause harm or suffering. So it's nothing to do with belief. It's not something that we need to be convinced about. Just like a human being doesn't like being stomped on or abused, neither does an animal. You know, our pets don't like being mistreated. We can see that they suffer. It's not a matter of which religion you subscribe to or whether you believe in it or not. So violence, theft, harsh words, all of those things, they're universally recognized as being harmful. Then there are what are called proscribed misdeeds. So actions that are not inherently bad, but they can lead to destructive behavior. So proscribed misdeeds are, for instance, some of the rules of the monks and the nuns, and layperson vows. For instance, not drinking alcohol. So alcohol in itself isn't good or bad. Different cultures experience alcohol in totally different ways. Alcohol doesn't always lead to violence. It's not a done deal. But with an uncontrolled mind, alcohol usually leads to negative behavior. And it can really harm your body too, misused. So it's a proscribed misdeed. Road rules, how fast you can drive or not, are also prescribed misdeeds. So there's nothing inherently right or wrong about going at 100 kilometers an hour, but depending on the context, it's going to matter. So you have a rule, and that keeps everybody safe. Various cultural gaffes as well can come into this one as well, where you might unknowingly kind of be rude, using the wrong hand to give a gift, hugging a monk or a nun, shoes on or shoes off. So they're all cultural rules, but they have a meaning and a weight behind them, but they're not inherently good or bad. So how do we know how to act, how not to act? If you're like me and pretty clueless and have to actually nut it out step by step, it's good to have a list. So here's the checklist. What not to do. The physical actions, the worst physical actions that we can do is kill another living being. So to refrain from killing. And in a country like Australia, that's pretty easy because, you know, there's hardly any guns, there's hardly any class warfare. In a country like America, where there are so many guns, this is more difficult. You know, whether we can refrain from killing easily or not, so much depends on our circumstances. And here in Australia, we can take them for granted. There are many countries in the world where there's hardly any room for choice. Refraining from stealing and refraining from sexual misconduct. Cheating on your partner or cheating with somebody else's partner. They're pretty obvious things, but how many movies are filled with them? And most of the time, you see, we think it's okay if we can get away with it. So that's that external watcher. We haven't internalized it. We haven't made our reason something that comes from an understanding about not wishing to harm oneself or others. The things to avoid with the speech: lying, divisive speech, talking behind people's backs, harsh speech, abusive, loud or swearing that harms others, hurts them, and meaningless speech. Kind of speech like gossip where we're unaware, we're just kind of blah, 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 rattling on, because most of that tends to degenerate and bring up the other ones. And it also wastes time. And in terms of the mind, activities of the mind, a habit of covetousness, wanting what other people have, the activity of malice or resentment or revenge, ill will towards others. It's kind of like practicing that ill will. And distorted views. Well, that's a really hard one. But anytime that we notice that we have prejudice or extreme attitudes or really hard, inflexible attitudes, we can know that they're distorted in some way. Also, if it makes our heart feel hard, we know they're distorted in some way. So they're the what are called the 10 non-virtuous actions, the ones to refrain from. Some are easy, some are hard. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to start off refraining from the negativities. So that's the very basic part of ethical behavior. Holding ethics is restraining from these so we don't break the bowl. the container of our ethics. And I remember one time with Venerable Robina, so she was here giving a teaching, and someone asked a question. They were feeling very badly about themselves. They were quite despondent, and they didn't feel they were a worthwhile person. And Venerable Robina, she can be quite direct. So she said, "Now listen, have you killed anybody?" And they went, "Oh, no." She said, "Do you yell at your partner?" She said, "No." "Have you cheated on them?" "No." "Do you steal from anybody?" "No." She said, "Well, you're already a good human being." Oh, so I'm pretty sure, apart from just like dying of fright on the spot, it puts it into context. So much of how we view ourselves, we view about our feelings, which, they could just be whether we're having a sugar crash or not. There's nothing deeply meaningful about them. What we really got to look at, how are we behaving? How do we embody our ethics? And if we've managed to refrain from those 10 non-virtuous actions, we're already a good human being. We're already a successful human being. We've already saved the world from untold harm, and it is a very strong, fantastic basis. So then, how do we, the other side of the equation, so we refrain from the negativities. Now, what can we do instead? How do we develop our core strength? So we have actions of body, speech, and mind. And remember, if we want to do something, if we want to feel worthwhile, we have to do something worthwhile. We can't just tell ourselves to change our feelings. We have to act differently, then we'll feel different. So on the physical side of things, instead of killing, seek to protect life. It's nice, isn't it? Instead of stealing, try and share your things. And instead of sexual misconduct, consciously stay faithful and look after your spouse. So you can see it's a whole different feeling already, isn't it? Just by thinking about acting in this way, developing our care and our actions of care and concern for others. So protecting life can be all sorts of things. It can be protecting the vulnerable. It can be saving little insects. It can be looking after somebody's kids, babysitting them. It can be donating to a wildlife fund. There's so many ways that we can protect life. So much of it, giving blood, for instance. I mean, incredible ways that we can actually not only protect life, but save lives. Sharing things, like the Buddha said, even if you have no money, you have no things to share, you can share your smile. You can share your time. You can share your good-heartedness. So it's not, sharing isn't necessarily with the stuff that we have to share, it's the attitude. So we always have something to share, even if it's just a kind smile. And I know Louise, who's here today, who works on a checkout, I'm sure she gives 100 smiles, 1,000 smiles a day, but whenever there's one that comes back, wow, it makes a big difference. How to embody our ethics with our speech? Instead of lying, to say what's truthful, what's true. So a considered truth. Because it's got to be a lot more than just the cold, hard truth. Instead of being divisive, be harmonious. Create harmony with our speech. Actually enhance harmonious relationships. Support them with our words. By giving well thought out compliments that bring out the good qualities in people so that they can focus on them more and continue to develop them. Gentle speech. So as we know, with people like Venerable Robina or like me, where speech may be clear, but it isn't necessarily gentle. So it can be a bit confronting, can't it? And it doesn't necessarily land well. So gentle speech, that I just think of, say, Geshe Zopa that teaches us online every Sunday. He's so humble and gentle in the way he presents things. And the more difficult the topic and the more confronting the topic, the more he giggles, the more gentle his speech is, so that it goes in nicely. It really affects me. And instead of gossip or meaningless speech, useful. Know the purpose, why we're talking. We don't have to make everything a deep and meaningful conversation, but we have to know why we're having the conversation. And why are we having the conversation? To create harmony. So the body, the actions of the speech, and then actions of the mind, in our own mind, practicing contentment. What I have is enough. Developing a sense of kindness, gentleness, care for others, instead of malice. And for the last one, distorted views, it's really easy. Cultivate curiosity. Just instead of becoming like a grumpy old man or a grumpy old woman, try and cultivate a sense of curiosity. Oh, how interesting. Tell me more. It just cuts through everything, even with people that you vehemently disagree with, that you just roll your eyes about, like anti-vaxxers or something. If you just approach it with a sense of curiosity, tell me more. It opens everything up and it diffuses all of that confrontational kind of at loggerheads. So with ethics, mostly ethics is about our physical actions. When we're in company, we watch our body and our speech. We have a discipline about that. And we make sure that we don't harm, and wherever possible, we enhance it like this, embodying our ethics. And then when we're alone, we watch our mind. So we still practice ethics when we're alone, but it's with our mind, what's going on internally. So it's not like all bets are off and we can just, run riot when we're by ourselves and there isn't any watcher. So then how to actually motivate ourselves to do this so it's genuine, so that our embodying our ethics is genuine. We have to cultivate a sense of equanimity. Equanimity isn't flatlining. It doesn't mean feeling bland towards everybody. It actually means that we raise the bar and we feel an equal affection towards everybody. So it's not just equanimity like no feeling. It's actually a genuine affection and care for everybody, regardless of our relationship with them. So a balanced attitude towards all beings. So I'm just going to stop the share for a moment and we can just do a little 5-minute reflection about this. So you can think, how are we going to create harmony in our life? How are we going to embody our ethics? How are we going to develop this balanced attitude? So one way is that, like they say in counseling, we can have an assumed positive regard for everyone. Like we're on their side. Like the Buddha has an assumed positive regard for everybody. So for your friends, think of the friends, the people that you know and love, that you care for, that you're really happy when you're with them, and feel that sense of warmth in your heart. Just bringing them to mind makes you feel nice. And recognize how a lot of why you feel nice with them is because they care for you as well as you care for them. So feel that warmth in your heart and feel it spread through your whole body, that sense of care and joy of being with them. and feel that as warmth and strength spreading through your body from your heart, and radiate it out to them. And really wish them well, that they have everything that they need, that they're able to achieve all of their virtuous hopes and wishes. They have all the medicines and the time and the support that they need, and just send it to them on those warm waves of love towards them. And then keeping that sense of warmth in your heart, extend it a little bit further to the strangers, the people that we know, but we don't know well, so we don't feel very strongly about them. So we can recognize, well, if we did get to know, for instance, the other people in this class, that we may just know their names, but if we got to know them, their background, a little bit about each other, now suddenly we kind of get colored in as people. Then if we hear something happen to them, it'd matter. Oh my gosh, that was my neighbor, or that was my friend, or that was someone in my country or in my town. So we can extrapolate that out to everybody, everyone that we don't know at present. If we just looked at an interview about them for half an hour, or read their biography, or just had a conversation with, something that happened to them when they were 10 years old, suddenly we'd feel close just through the exposure, because they're just like us. So even though we may not feel about the strangers like this now, we could. So extend that feeling of loving kindness towards all the strangers, those people that we just know of, or we recognize their face. And recognize that just in a matter of a little bit of time, we could feel as deeply and care as deeply about them as we do our best friends. And send them all the loving kindness and warmth from your heart too. And see them relax, become peaceful, so in this way we've encompassed a large portion of the world, but not everybody. There's still the enemies left, the ones that scare us, that make us so frustrated, that abuse us or others. So all of these people that we recoil from, they come under the category of enemies. But what we're recoiling from is their behavior. It's not them, it's their behavior. We can judge the behavior, but not the person. The person is just like us. No matter what they've done, they're just like us. They have potential just like us, and they have feelings just like us, but what they've done with them has often been catastrophic. So when we look at it that way, they actually need our love and concern the most, more than our friends, because they're in dire straits. What they're doing to themselves and to others and the planet, it's catastrophic. So extending our care towards them, send those waves of love to them, recognizing how dominated they are by their negativities, how much they need help, and see all of their destructive behavior and afflictive emotions fall away from them like a crusty skin that just falls away. Feel all of that hard exterior harmful shell break apart and fall away from them. And they too become relaxed, happy, loving. Send them everything that they need to be happy. Below the angry face, the suffering person, and now see them transform and become peaceful and happy, just like you. And then dedicate this short reflection. May we bring this about, create a harmonious and loving world all around us, including everybody, without missing out anybody, to a universal harmony. Then take a nice deep breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth. So this reflection, the friend, enemy, stranger reflection, what we do, we start with the ones that we love. And from that, recognizing that we love them not just because they're nice to us, but because we actually care about them. Then we extend it to the strangers, the ones that we usually have this effect. You know, we just kind of go, oh, meh, whatever. I don't know them, they don't matter, like Homer Simpson. So we raise the bar. We recognize if we did know them, they could, but for happenstance, be our nearest and dearest. And then for the enemies, we recognize it's the behavior, it's not the person. And my absolute go-to one with this is like a brutalized dog. A brutalized dog that shows the face of anger and destruction. So we know that dog is terrified and is just acting aggressively through fear, through afflictive states of mind, dominated by their fear. So we don't go, oh, kill the dog. We recognize that that angry face comes from suffering. So we see below the angry face to the suffering underneath. And what's so good about this analogy of the angry, brutalized dog is you still don't go and cuddle them because that's dangerous, but you don't hate them. You care for them. You save them from that environment and you rehabilitate them whilst being very, very careful. So then that's the contemplation, the inner work. Now, some real handy hints for ethics, how to act, how to embody our ethics. Well, first off, start by having friends with ethics. Instead of friends with benefits, friends with ethics. Make sure you spend time with people that are ethically really strong, so it rubs off on you. So that you can get into their slipstream instead of you being the one that kind of carries the weight for everybody. You must have friends with ethics. Our lamas, our monks and nuns, our spiritual buddies, you know, what a relief it is to be with them. So really make sure you cultivate friends with ethics. We can ask, are we part of the solution or part of the problem? If we are not part of the solution, we are part of the problem. So we've got to become active in our civil society. Actually, at least try and work to make our laws have a beneficial result. We can make sure that we become incorruptible. How? By practicing humility. This is the best armor ever. So Geshe Langri Tangpa's 8 verses of thought transformation, in there, he says about always seeing oneself the lowest of all, putting everybody above. So what this does is it makes us incorruptible. It means we won't have a double standard and think, oh, it's okay for me to do that. We won't rip people off. We won't believe all of the fantastic publicity till we get incredibly big-headed. We won't fall off the wagon simply by having humility and putting others above us. We become incorruptible. It is amazing. If the politicians and the judges and everything actually had some humility, they wouldn't become corrupted. With our ethical behavior, harm minimization is the way to start. Don't kind of get a fundamentalist about it, but just try in everything that we do to minimize harm. Just even 1% each day, minimize harm. And recognize that not retaliating is an action as well. Not saying the thing back, not retaliating, not being aggressive, not adding to the fire. Even though it's not a specific action, it is still incredibly powerful. And the whole approach of Buddhist practice is this harm minimization. Catch out any spiritual materialism, which is that kind of bargaining with ethics. If I be good, then good things will happen to me. That's spiritual materialism. So watch out for that and adjust your motivation. Proudly uphold your code of conduct. Whatever that code of conduct is, that's something to be fiercely proud about. Strong. Wear your superpower cape of ethical standards. So you may not feel like you are very strong ethically, but if you put on your cape of your professional conduct, you put on your cape of your Buddhist vows, or your code of conduct for being a primary school teacher, or being a nurse, or being a checkout chick, that code of conduct is like your superpower cloak. And you put it on, and now suddenly you have the strength. And as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, we can all become an inner professional. So we expect our school teachers and nurses and first responders and everything to treat everybody equally. We expect that, and that is a big ask. We can do this too. This is actually what ethics is, becoming an inner professional. So we have ethics, the foundation. It's our core strength, everything for achieving everything that we want to do. Concentration, the two arms that hold the axe, always must be informed by love. And wisdom that recognizes interdependence amongst all people, everybody. We are interdependent. We affect each other. Therefore, everybody matters. And when we recognize this interdependence fully, we can cut the root of suffering forever. So who knew ethics was such a big thing, huh? What I would like to do is ask you now, what questions and comments do you have? Most of you have your camera on. Just wave at me with a question or a comment. Anything that came up? Anything that stood out for you? It's got to be something, right? Wave at me and I'm pretty sure you can unmute. Yep, you can unmute. Yes, Doris, go for it.
I was trying to find it on my iPad.
Oh, yeah.
Did you say considerate truth?
Yes.
Like, how do you do that? Like, it's really a,
Well, there's an acronym. So the Buddha said to ask, is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? But you can use the acronym THINK. Think before you speak. So true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, kind. So that one's quite good. But I tell you what, if you just think about it, if you just think before you speak, you're not going to speak very much.
Well, that's definitely an old saying, think before you speak.
It is, and it's so useful. And I mean, the thing is that when we're abused or criticized, often what people say is true, but it doesn't land very well, does it? So we've got to have more than truth. It's got to be truth put skillfully and kindly, and then it lands well.
Thank you. I'll practice.
No.
All I could do.
Susan, did you have a question too?
Miffi, I was just wondering if you could tell us the name of that book that you held up, please.
Oh, so it's called Practicing the Path by Nyung-ne Rinpoche, Y-A-N-G-S-I. I think it's mentioned in the notes.
Okay.
So it's quite thick, and it's a complete lamrim text, a commentary on the lamrim chenmo, but it's taken from a whole lot of talks that he gave to Westerners. So it's got a really nice a conversational tone to it, with the standard lamrim kind of subject matter. Who else? Anybody else? Oh yes, Mary.
Miffi, I just love when you present and the way you describe things. And I love what you said about the code of conduct. It's a superpower cloak. That was so good. And I'll take that away from the teaching tonight, is the superpower cloak.
Fantastic. I'm so glad about that, because, often, we think, oh, what can I do? But somehow if we put on that, the support of the organization, or like FPMT, we have our code of conduct, then it gives you power. It gives you power you didn't know you have. And, it doesn't have to be the deep and meaningful code of conduct like doctors or professors or something. I mean, every organization has a code of conduct. And like, I know my friend Lou here who works at a checkout, I'm sure you've got a code of conduct and you're not allowed to swear back at your customers and things like that.
Apparently not.
And I know you get a lot of abuse, and especially in the lockdowns and things like that, the amount of abuse that you get. So what can give you strength is that you remember, oh yeah, that's right. They're not a professional shopper, but I'm a professional checkout.
I think it's easy to, it's not really ethics, but I find it easy. If they're scared, you can see their fear. And I mean, unlike Canada and America and a lot of other countries, we are so privileged that we haven't had the horrific deaths and everything that has been going on. And part of me doesn't understand their fear, because you just feel like saying to them, it's 3 days, people, you've probably got enough food and we're not actually shutting. So I sort of every now and then sort of say, well, at least, we're lucky, sort of thing, and stuff like that. But their fear is palpable. And I often just wonder how other countries are dealing if we're carrying on like that to to the limited degree that we're affected. I just feel so much compassion for the rest of the world that don't have the security that we have here.
Yeah, and Louise, you've just brought out that exact point, like of the rabid dog, that if we can see the fear underneath the angry face, then that's right, that spontaneously, genuinely, you have compassion. And so then, I mean, the more fearful people are, often the worse that they'll act, the more aggressive they'll act, until they're very, very dangerous. But still, underneath every aggressive action is that fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, wow, what a practice. We've got time for one more question or comment. Anybody else? Yes, Nicole, can you unmute?
Okay.
Yes, go
Hi,
for it.
Miffi. Hello, everybody as well. This is my first Langri Tangpa
Okay, welcome.
lesson. Thank you. Thank you very. I'm gonna be. I'll be along with many, many more. Thank you so much, Miffi. You've provided so much inspiration, clarity, and yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you very,
Thank
very
you
much.
Nicole,
I really-
whereabouts are you from?
I'm just up in Aspley.
Oh, okay, so you're a Brisbaneite, rightio.
Yeah. I'm in Brisbane too, so I'm just up at Aspley, half an hour from the centre.
Yeah. Oh, great.
You're at Cannon Hill. So yeah, and I'm really going to use the that reflection, practice that daily. I do have for a long time I have been going, it's not the person, it's the behavior, it's not for one specific person in my life, and it's been going on for a year, and I'm trying to have the compassionate thoughts, but it sort of bugs me, and you know how you get that frustrated bug and you start to pinpoint on what they've done, and I've been trying to not the behavior, it's a person. So I'm going to practice that little reflection every night, so I can keep moving further and further away from those moments of
yeah, that's right. And
a year ago now.
I mean, also, if we think of it in terms of brutalized animals, for instance, it keeps the wisdom aspect of still being careful. And with a brutalized dog, for instance, you shouldn't be in the same enclosure as them. You should actually remove yourself from them. But there's an amazing documentary, this guy that he's the dog whisperer, Cesar Millan.
He's wonderful, isn't he?
He's just amazing. And so, within that, he helps those dogs become rehabilitated, and the dogs help each other. So this is a natural process. This isn't something that is put on from on high. This is, if we let it, it is possible for everybody to become rehabilitated.
Yes.
Maybe not this life, maybe it's next life, but from our side, we can do everything to.
Yeah, because my logic belief is that, it's behavior. It's not the person. They've had whatever circumstances led them up. But to try to embody it without having the negatives come in, I think, thank you for your reflection. That will help.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so
much. I've really enjoyed today.
So let's dedicate the merits. I'm so pleased that it got to happen today. And Paola as well, thank you for coming along. And Mary, thank you for being our spontaneous host for the day, because this is a joint teaching. So it's actually hosted by Thupten Norbu Ling in Santa Fe. So let's gather up all of the positive momentum of today and feel it like a strength in your heart, and offer it to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We offer our practice to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas because that's what pleases them the most. And we offer on behalf of every single living being, because, we're in the world. We're responsible for the world. And so all of this positive momentum in our heart can be like that developing that core strength. So may we embody our ethics. May we actually embody the activities of a Buddha, enlightened activities to bring ultimate benefit to ourselves and others. And that'll give us a really strong foundation in this life, but all the way to complete liberation from suffering and all of its causes. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Really, really great. I hope to see you next week. And Mary will let everybody know about catching up, the other people from the class.